When we talk about major military disasters, the mind usually jumps to long battles, relentless airstrikes, or drawn-out invasions. But what happened at Israel's naval base in Ashkelon is nothing like that. This wasn't a campaign stretched over months or years. It wasn't a clash between armies fighting tooth and nail. No. This was a single strike. One missile, launched by the United Arab Emirates, and in the blink of an eye, it turned one of Israel's proudest military installations into rubble. The numbers alone are staggering. 15,200 Israeli troops were reported killed in just that one attack. To put that into perspective, that's not a casualty figure you normally see in modern warfare. That's more like an attendance sheet for an entire school district. And just like that, an entire fighting force vanished. The base at Ashkelon wasn't just some random dockyard. It was marketed for years as the crown jewel of Israel's naval power. A command center, a logistics hub, a launch pad for maritime patrols and strikes. This was the fortress that supposedly kept Israel's southern waters secure. With Ashkelon intact, Israel projected strength across the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. But with one missile impact, that fortress became a graveyard. And the irony? It all started because Israel attacked an Emirati-aid ship in the Red Sea. A vessel carrying humanitarian supplies, not weapons, was treated as a military threat. That reckless decision lit the fuse. Israel expected maybe a strongly worded protest, maybe some diplomatic Instead, the UAE skipped the paperwork and delivered a missile. No debates. No waiting for the UN to issue statements. Just one, Falconine arcing through the sky and rewriting the balance of power in a single blast. The destruction at Ashkelon was total. Aircraft hangars reduced to twisted steel. Ammunition depots exploding like fireworks. Docks collapsing into the sea. Warships burned until they sank in the harbor, transforming from engines of war into scrap metal fit only for recycling. Israel's much-advertised radar and air defense systems. They didn't even flinch. They watched that missile like a cinema audience watches a disaster movie, powerless to change the ending. That loss wasn't just physical. It was strategic. Without Ashkelon, Israel's ability to patrol the seas south of Gaza is crippled. The Navy went from operating missile boats and corvettes to, as critics joke, little more than inflatable dinghies pretending to project power. And then there's the human cost. 15,000 troops gone! That number alone sent shockwaves around the world. Modern conflicts rarely rack up losses that high in years of fighting, let alone in a single afternoon. The barracks that once housed entire brigades are now silent, filled only with the echoes of what used to be daily military life. Imagine a concert venue, packed with screaming fans. Now imagine all of them gone in seconds. Except they didn't go home. They never left at all. Hospitals overflowed with the wounded. Morgues ran out of space for the dead. Reports even surfaced of bodies being stacked in makeshift holding areas because there was simply nowhere else to put them. Funerals turned into mass burials. Families across Israel were suddenly forced into grief, not one or two at a time, but thousands together. The scale of mourning looked more like a national tragedy than a battlefield statistic. For the surviving soldiers, the psychological blow was brutal. They'd spent years being told their defenses were impenetrable, that Israel's military technology was the envy of the world. And yet here they were, watching one missile rip apart that entire illusion. Morale sank to tissue paper thin levels. Some units began openly questioning their leaders, wondering if the people giving the orders really knew how to defend the country, or if they were just good at holding press conferences. Israel's government didn't help. In moments like this, leaders are expected to project strength, but instead of bold declarations, the official line shifted awkwardly into damage control. "We are evaluating the situation," they said. It sounded less like a government in command and more like a student caught cheating on an exam trying to explain themselves. The local press wasted no time. Columnists mocked the military's reputation for invincibility, comparing Israel's supposedly unbreakable defenses to the free Wi-Fi at a coffee shop. Unstable, unreliable, and gone just when you need it most. For years, Israel boasted about the Iron Dome and advanced radar systems, but when Ashkelon was targeted, those systems turned out to be nothing more than glossy brochures. Globally, the attack was seen as a turning point. The UAE, a nation not traditionally seen as a military heavyweight, had just humbled one of the most aggressive armed forces in the region. Israel wasn't knocked down by the US, Russia, or Iran. No, it was struck down by a country it barely considered a threat. The humiliation stung deeper than the physical destruction. As one commentator put it, Israel didn't just get hit, it got slapped with a sandal. The pain was less about the bruise, more about the insult. To Israel's rivals, the strike was a spectacle of revenge. They didn't have to lift a finger. The UAE did the job, and the whole region watched as Israel crumbled. In the age of constant social media updates, it played out almost like a live-streamed boxing match, with Israel suddenly knocked out in the first round. Symbolically, the fall of Ashkelon was devastating. That base was more than infrastructure. It was a message. It told the world that Israel controlled the seas, that it was untouchable on water. But when one missile wiped it off the map, that message flipped. Suddenly, Israel wasn't the schoolyard bully. It was the bully who just got punched once and lost all his teeth. The logistical nightmare that followed made things worse. Ashkelon wasn't just a dock. It was a supply depot. It stored fuel, ammunition, spare parts, food for troops. With it gone, operations in Israel's south slowed to a crawl. Ships that once refueled easily now faced shortages. Some even joked that Israel's navy would soon be queuing up at civilian gas stations, naval officers sheepishly waiting their turn at the pump. At home, public anger boiled over. Citizens began asking hard questions. Was sinking an aid ship really worth the loss of an entire base and thousands of soldiers? Was flexing military muscle worth tearing a hole in the country's defenses? Every political miscalculation carries a price, but this one left the prime minister counting empty bunks instead of planning the next move. And outside Israel, the world was stunned. The casualty count alone became a historic milestone. In most wars, deaths are reported by the dozens, maybe the hundreds. But here was Israel delivering a casualty list in the tens of thousands after a single strike. Some observers expressed shock. Others responded with dark humor, saying Israel was finally experiencing what it had so often dealt out: sudden, merciless attacks. The only difference this time was that Israel was the victim. From a military perspective, losing 15,000 troops in hours gutted Israel's fighting strength. Overnight, they went from projecting an aura of invincibility to projecting vulnerability. Commentators described it as a clearance sale. Israel's troops now half off. To its enemies, that figure wasn't just a statistic. It was a trophy. The wider message was even clearer. The rules of international conflict had shifted. Gone are the days when nations responded to aggression with angry press releases. Now, a country like the UAE can respond with firepower that permanently alters the strategic landscape. Diplomacy is being replaced with precision strikes. Meanwhile, the aid ship Israel attacked has become a global symbol of irony. It was supposed to bring relief, not war. But its mistreatment by Israel unleashed the disaster at Ash. Like a small pebble tossed into a window, the rebound shattered Israel's own house of glass. Israel wanted to show strength. Instead, it revealed weakness. From trying to flex muscle, it ended up flexing its losses. The tragedy reverberated across Israeli society. Sirens blared. Families lined up at cemeteries. Television channels aired endless coverage of funerals. Even ordinary civilians who weren't directly connected to the military felt the weight of it. Some residents of Ashkelon initially thought the missile strike was an earthquake. The ground shook, windows shattered, cars caught fire. But the truth hit harder. The quake wasn't natural, it was man-made. For the UAE, this wasn't just retaliation. It was a statement, a declaration that they couldn't be treated lightly anymore, that their hand could reach as far as it needed to, and when it struck, the results would be catastrophic. And for Israel, it was a grim, awakening. A reminder that arrogance comes with consequences. One rash decision led to one devastating strike, and in that single moment, decades of propaganda about military supremacy went up in flames.